So I thought you would be the perfect guest to talk about Hollywood women on AI.
I love it.
Because
Here
we're
for it.
basically seeing um, prominent actresses come out and speak about AI. Most recently, Demi Moore brought it up at Cannes. She's a jury member of the 79th Cannes Film Festival, which opened last week. At the press conference, she was asked about AI, and she answered, AI is here, and so to fight it, in a sense, to fight something that is a battle that we will lose. So to find ways in which we can work with it, I think is a more valuable path to take. But she also admitted my inclination would be to say probably not when asked if the industry is doing enough to protect itself. She was pretty, pilloried for this, just, saying that it's inevitable. I saw a lot of responses from people saying, well, you're one of the people that is making it inevitable by saying that it's inevitable. So if you stand up against it, maybe there would be a way to fight back against it. This was, after Reese Witherspoon also received similar backlash when she promoted an Instagram video where she's making a smoothie and saying it's time, people, saying that she found out that 7 out of the 10 women in her book club aren't using AI. She's previously said that she uses ChatGPT and Anthropic. To do, basic things like recipes, research, all that. She's also invested in a couple of companies that focus on AI. She cited a stat saying that women's jobs were 3 times more likely to be automated by AI, yet only 25% of women actually use it. And she's saying that women need a seat at the table. But then she clarified that I don't believe computers should replace humanity. The fact that she backed it up with stats and was saying, this is why it's important to learn AI, made it better for me. But still, she's not actually explaining what it is that women can be doing. And then also, she has power in Hollywood, right? She has a production company. She has, the book, production side as well. So I thought she could put a little bit more emphasis on what it is she's suggesting that Hollywood do. And then Charlize Theron and Sandra Bullock also said things pretty similarly. They didn't get as much backlash, probably because they didn't really say much else. But these are all like examples of a narrative that if you want to take on, you have to figure out what you actually want to say, especially because it's so tricky and it's just laced with so much inherent like negative press that's already out there that it makes it easy for people to just glom onto, oh, Reese Witherspoon is saying women need to learn AI, but then not actually following through and saying like what they're doing to like help the industry or make sure that the industry is protected.
No, absolutely. And I think you bring up so many good points, Sonia, because what's interesting is that when these stars comment on AI, it's lacking that expert lens. It's very reactionary, it's very soundbite driven. And I think that doesn't serve them very well.
Yeah.
It's very easy to say things like resistance is futile and
Yeah.
it's a battle that we will lose. I feel like those are such sensationalized, like little sound bites, and it's actually doing like a really very much a disservice
Yeah.
to the sentiment around AI. It feels like an inevitability with such a negative connotation.
Hmm.
I think a better way to approach the topic in general is like, hey, there's something here. It's going to deeply affect the ways in which you work.
Hmm.
And you should learn what that means for you and how to use that to your advantage.
Hmm.
That sentiment change doesn't solve everything, but I think it starts shifting the power back to the human.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, there are fantastic ways to use AI to streamline, to declutter how we work. I mean, I use AI every day, and I also oversee a high performing creative team who makes beautiful work themselves.
Hmm.
And there's no conflict there for me because it allows me to templatize and streamline our ways of working, I use it to build tools and trackers. And it allows me to get back to appreciating the craft, the human craft
Hmm.
of the humans on my team.
Hmm.
And I think what these stars are doing when they say these very sensationalized statements is they almost throw their hands up and
Yeah.
say, it's an inevitability. Like, we have no choice. We must conform. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, let's calm down here. This is a
Hmm.
new tool.
Hmm.
This is a new way of working. I think it's the framing that we need to be
Yeah.
using because we're not losing to AI, we're using AI.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to rhyme there, but,
Seriously.
it happens.
That's funny. No, I totally agree. And I want to bring this up because there are examples, and they just happen to be men that are speaking about their use of AI, and they aren't getting that backlash. So the first is Christopher Nolan, who spoke to Deadline in February of 2026. He was elected the Directors Guild. Association president this last September, and he chairs the guild's AI committee. So he basically has to talk about AI, and he's taking it from a lens of like, let's figure out what we're doing and negotiate to help. Everybody in the industry. So he said, we have excellent protections, but that's not enough. You have to have a voice in how this tool is used moving forward. And I think he's coming from a position of like, I have all this, all these points built up by using human creativity, right? The Odyssey is going to be the first film that has been entirely filmed with IMAX cameras. And he's always talking about the craft and, humans being a part of it and, using practical effects and building out the sets, right? So he doesn't actually get heat for that, right? Because he's talking about the things that actually concern people, which is like, okay, if AI is here, how are we going to protect the human side of the craft versus the AI? And then also Ben Affleck had an episode with Joe Rogan, and his AI take was AI writing is shitty because it's designed to go to the mean, the average. So it can never produce something truly original, called the existential threat narrative bullshit, and argued that most of the panic is companies justifying massive data center investments. Framed it as a tool, just like visual effects. And the reaction has been basically positive, right? And I think that's because it's falling into two narratives. One, it is shitty, actually. Like, if you've, read any AI, slop or seen AI like commercials, they look shitty still. And like what makes it annoying is when people are like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Look at how it's going to come and change everything. And it's like, can you not see how this is horrible looking? And can you not read, the AI slop? It's what he thinks about, right? He's thinking about these particular angles because that's what he knows. So he's, pairing it to the writing, right? And then the other thing about it being about, the data center investment also rings true, right? Because he's talking about those companies are incentivized to talk about AI and the jobs that everyone's going to lose and how everything's going to be game changing because it affects their bottom line, right? Um, this is before it turns out that he sold his, AI production company to Netflix, which is kind of funny because it shows why he was thinking about it, right? He's thinking about how we can actually use AI in a way that will cut costs for making movies. Right now, when LA is facing such a dearth of Hollywood productions and like growing costs, that if you're able to find some way to cut costs to make movies, then that'll be appealing to artists. But you have to couch it in that way. And I think that's where, the women are kind of missing it because they're just talking about an overarching like AI is here, use it or lose your job. Um, Whereas the men are talking about it in like, okay, if we are going to use it, here's where I think I see that we can use it. The biggest thing, I don't want it to be like, the men know how to talk about it and the women don't. It's not about that. It's
Exactly.
just like they're coming at it from a different angle. And I hope that the women learn from this and talk about it in this way because they also have the ability to like think about the nuance behind it and where they can see an avenue for AI to actually function with the human creators and not just come and take their jobs.
Yeah, no, Sonia, you bring up so many interesting points, especially like the juxtaposition of like these two different perspectives that are going on at the same time, especially like Reese Witherspoon versus Christopher Nolan, not necessarily versus in
Yeah.
like leading statements, but just the juxtaposition of them on each other.
Mhm.
I do think it's interesting. And for context, I was raised working mom, executive in the financial sector, and always was raised with the thesis that as a woman, you need to rise to the occasion no matter what. There never put yourself in a position where it's like, "Oh, well, the guys are nailing it and the women
Yeah.
are falling behind." Witherspoon has really become very powerful voice in the
Mhm.
space. So, I look forward to seeing her perspective evolve, change, and get those additional layers that come with additional data points. I think, as you said, she's scratching the surface there of, speaking about, like, the percentage of women who
Mhm.
are using AI tools and encouraging women to explore these
Right.
options and get, an education in how the world is changing, essentially.
Mhm.
When it comes to Christopher Nolan, I think his statements are very interesting because he's answering because of the role that he now carries.
Right.
As you said in the Directors Guild, that's very important for him to have these very prescriptive
Mhm.
takes on what AI means for creatives. At neuemotion specifically, about a year ago, I almost think it's like a year to the day, I was looking yesterday, we published an edition of our Substack New Wave. It was called The Hollow Canyon. And the Hollow Canyon is essentially like the moment that you realize that something that you're engaging with has no pulse and is
Mhm.
like not human at all. It's a really great piece. One of our strategists, Haley Allen, who's been on the show before, she helped write it, and it really gets to like why human creativity, human insight development, human creation in general will remain a force in the industry. I think piggybacking on some of the things that I think you said, Ben Affleck said about AI writing being shitty.
Mhm.
MIT recently published an article spotlighting a study that they had run,
Mhm.
and one of the professors, Thomas Malone, said that the combinations of humans and AI work best when each party can do the things that they do better than the other.
Mhm.
So, like, essentially, humans are great at tasks involving contextual understanding and emotional intelligence, while AI is best at like highly repetitive, high volume, data driven tasks. And I think that's what we're getting at here is like,
Yeah.
there's a role for AI here. It's amazing. It's transforming our industries, but let's keep it in the right lanes so that we are ultimately pushing forward towards a better, end product.
Yeah.
When it usurps the human, you end up with the shitty writing.
Mhm.
When you don't let AI take over like the menial tasks, you're drawn into, spending too much time building a tracker
Mhm.
or sourcing based on your this is how I use AI.
Yeah.
All of our, contractual producers, we're standing up a shoot somewhere in the country. I'm then sent on a 2-hour time suck of staffing that
Mhm.
when I could
Mhm.
be using a tool where it's like, oh, I found Joe and Dan who are in the San Francisco area. We can
Mhm.
stand them up for this shoot.
Yeah.
Streamlining things, letting
Yeah.
AI do what it's good at, letting the humans do the craft that we're all good at.